The air in Mossford always tasted of damp earth and wood smoke at twilight, a comforting, familiar blend that usually lulled the village to sleep. But for Lyra, it only sharpened her senses. She wasn't like the other children, whose dreams arrived promptly with the first star, and departed only with the sunrise. Lyra saw the world differently, as if through a thin, shimmering veil that most others missed entirely. Her cottage, nestled at the very edge of Mossford where the last cultivated fields gave way to the ancient, untamed whispering woods, hummed with the quiet rhythm of her parents' evening chores. Her father, Ilara, a man whose hands were as gnarled and strong as the roots of an old oak, would be sharpening his tools by the hearth, the rhythmic scrape of steel on stone a gentle counterpoint to the crackling fire. Her mother, Lenora, with hair the color of polished chestnut and eyes that held the warmth of a summer afternoon, would be mending a fishing net, her needle a swift silver dart in the lamplight. Lyra, however, wasn't mending or sharpening. She sat by her window, her chin propped on her knees, gazing out at the deepening indigo sky. The first few stars, sharp as chips of ice, began to prick through the fading light. Below them, the silhouette of the sleeping peaks, jagged and mysterious, guarded the horizon. And closer still, the whispering woods rustled, a living, breathing entity that always seemed to hum a tune only Lyra could truly hear. Tonight, the usual hum was different. It was a melody, faint at first, like a breath of wind through a forgotten flute, then rising, falling, and weaving itself into the very fabric of the mist veil that was beginning to drift down from the peaks. The mist veil was a common occurrence in Mossford, a shroud of pearlescent fog that descended with the cooler evening air, carrying with it the scent of pine needles, damp moss, and something else, something ancient and indefinable. Tonight it seemed to carry the song. "Lyra, child, are you still by that window?" her mother called softly, her voice warm as the hearth fire. "The night air is growing chill. Time for bed." Lyra sighed, a wisp of a sound that vanished into the room. "The mist veil is singing tonight, Mama," she murmured, not turning from the window. "A new song. It's beautiful." Lenora chuckled, a soft, indulgent sound. "It's just the wind, little dreamer, playing tricks with the mist and the branches. Come, let's get you tucked in. You'll be dreaming of singing mist soon enough." Her father, without looking up from his whetstone, added, "Aye, Lyra's always hearing things the rest of us don't. A good imagination is a fine thing, but don't let it keep you from your sleep, lass." Lyra knew they didn't understand. It wasn't just imagination. It was real. She could feel the notes resonate in her bones, a gentle thrumming that was both comforting and profoundly mysterious. She reluctantly pulled away from the window, the melody fading slightly as she did, like a shy creature retreating from her gaze. After a warm mug of spiced milk, and a final story from her mother about the brave river folk who lived in the Whisperwind River that flowed through their valley, Lyra was tucked into her bed. The quilt, pieced together from scraps of her mother's old dresses and her father's worn shirts, was soft and heavy. The room was dark, save for the sliver of moonlight that pierced through a gap in her curtains, painting a silver stripe across the rough-hewn floorboards. But sleep did not come. The song, which had seemed to fade, now returned, clearer and more insistent. It wasn't the wind, not truly. The wind made rustling sounds, whistling noises, a mournful sigh. This was different. It was a melody, intricate and layered, woven from sounds Lyra had never heard before. It sounded like tiny bells chiming beneath water, like the softest whisper of a butterfly's wings, like the slow blooming unfurling of a flower petal in the moonlight. It was a lullaby, but not one for sleeping. It was a lullaby that called, that beckoned, that filled Lyra with an almost unbearable longing. She recognized fragments of it now, from other nights. Other times she had mentioned the singing mist or the moonflower music to her parents, only to be met with their kind, but ultimately dismissive smiles. But tonight, it was stronger than ever, and she knew with a certainty that settled deep in her heart, that it was meant for her. She carefully pushed back her quilt, the woolen fabric whispering against itself. The floorboards were cold beneath her bare feet. She padded silently to the window, pulling aside the thick linen curtain. The mist veil had thickened, transforming the familiar landscape into an ethereal dreamscape. The moon, a perfect silver orb, hung high above the sleeping peaks, casting an otherworldly glow that made the mist shimmer like liquid pearl. And there, deep within the whispering woods, where the trees grew so dense that even the midday sun struggled to penetrate, Lyra saw it. A light. Not a harsh burning light like a fire, nor a steady soft glow like a lantern. This light pulsed, a gentle rhythmic throb of soft cerulean blue, like a beating heart made of starlight. And from this light, the song flowed clear and pure, cutting through the mist and the night, directly to her. It was the song of the moon petals. She knew it. She had named it so in her mind long ago, for it always seemed to bloom with the moon, and its notes felt as delicate and precious as the petals of the rare, luminous moon petal flower her grandmother had once told her tales about. A flower that bloomed only under the direct gaze of the full moon, its petals glowing faintly and singing a silent song that only the purest of hearts could hear. But her grandmother had said those flowers were long gone, a myth from a time when the world was younger and magic more overt. Lyra leaned closer to the glass, her breath misting the pain. The blue light pulsed, drawing her in. Her heart beat a rapid rhythm against her ribs, a mix of fear and an exhilarating, irresistible curiosity. She knew she shouldn't go. Her parents' warnings echoed in her mind. Why the woods are no place for a child after dark. The shadow wolves roam. The paths twist and vanish. Stay close to home, Lyra bird. Only, can I send winter? But the song was not menacing. It was a promise, a secret whispered just to her. It spoke of wonder, of beauty, of something profoundly waiting. She looked back at her sleeping parents' room, their door slightly ajar, a soft snore from her father a testament to their deep slumber. They wouldn't know. They wouldn't understand. This was hers to discover. With a newfound resolve, Lyra began to dress. She pulled on her thickest woolen socks, her worn but sturdy leather boots, and her warmest cloak, its hood lined with soft rabbit fur. She grabbed the small leather pouch she always carried for collecting interesting stones or particularly vibrant leaves just in case. Inside, she tucked a piece of dried apple, a smooth river stone for good luck, and a small carved wooden sparrow her father had made for her. Moving with the silent grace of a forest creature, she unlatched the cottage door. It creaked, a soft, protesting groan that made her freeze, her heart leaping into her throat. But no sound came from her parents' room. The house remained still. She eased the door open just enough to slip through, then closed it with agonizing slowness, the latch falling into place with a gentle click. The night air, as she stepped out, was sharp and cold, carrying the damp scent of the mist veil. But the cold didn't bother her. The song was a warmth in her chest, a beacon in the swirling fog. The blue light pulsed steadily from the depths of the whispering woods, a mesmerizing dance. Mossford was utterly asleep. The cottages, with their thatched roofs and wattle and daub walls, were dark, silent shapes hunched against the mist. A faint, golden glow moss clung to the base of the old village well, casting a soft, almost imperceptible light on the cobblestones. A pair of starlight beetles, their carapaces shimmering with tiny iridescent points of light, crawled lazily across a dew-kissed leaf. Even the usually talkative Whisperwind River, which flowed past the village, seemed to hush its murmurs, flowing with a silent silver grace towards the unseen sea. Lyra walked carefully, her boots crunching softly on the gravel path that led out of the village. The mist veil swirled around her knees, then her waist, embracing her in its cool, ethereal embrace. She felt like she was stepping into a dream, a waking dream woven from moonlight and ancient magic. As she left the last cottage behind, the path narrowed, becoming little more than a deer trail winding into the woods. The trees here were older, their branches twisted and gnarled, draped with ancient moss and thick ivy. Shadow owls hooted softly in the distance, their calls mournful and distant, but Lyra felt no fear. The song, clearer now, seemed to banish all shadows, even those in her own heart. The blue light grew stronger, closer. It seemed to pulse in time with the song, a living rhythm that pulled her deeper into the forest. The air grew thicker, with a scent of pine and something else, something sweet and earthy, like honey and damp soil, mingled with the metallic tang of moonlight. She passed ancient stones covered in runic markings Lyra had never seen before, glowing faintly with an inner light that seemed to pulse in harmony with the distant blue. These were the boundary markers, her father had always said, between their world and the wilder, untamed lands beyond. He never crossed them after dark, Lyra bird. The old magic sleeps there, and it doesn't always like to be disturbed. Canins. But tonight, the old magic wasn't sleeping. It was singing. Lyra stepped over the last of the boundary stones, a massive, lichen-covered boulder that seemed to sigh as she passed. The trees instantly grew denser, taller, their canopy so thick that even the moon's direct light struggled to penetrate. Here, the glow moss was more abundant, carpeting the forest floor in a soft emerald luminescence that lit her way. Dream vines, with their delicate, bell-shaped flowers, hung from the branches, their petals shimmering with faint internal light, like tiny, suspended stars. The whispering woods lived up to its name here. The wind, though gentle, carried a multitude of soft, rustling sounds, like secrets being exchanged between the ancient trees. Yet, through it all, the song of the moon petals remained her unwavering guide, weaving its enchanting melody through the rustles and whispers. She walked for what felt like a long time, though the concept of time seemed to blur and stretch in this magical place. The trees eventually began to thin slightly, giving way to a more open glade. The blue light, now a vibrant, breathtaking beacon, was directly ahead. Lyra pushed through a curtain of shimmering, dew-laden leaves, stepping into a clearing. And then she stopped, breathless, her eyes wide with wonder. The clearing was bathed in the most astonishing blue light she had ever seen. It wasn't coming from a single source, but from hundreds, thousands of blossoms, unlike any flower she had ever encountered. They grew in a wide circular patch in the very center of the glade, their petals unfurling in the moonlight, glowing with an inner luminescence that pulsed with the song of the moon petals. They were moon petals, truly. Each flower was a delicate marvel, its petals a translucent, pearlescent white, edged with a faint luminous blue. They seemed to shimmer and breathe with their own gentle life, their light casting long dancing shadows of the surrounding trees. And from each flower, a note. The collective harmony was the lullaby, the symphony that had called her. It was so pure, so exquisite, that tears pricked at Lyra's eyes. She felt a profound sense of recognition, as if she had been searching for this place, this song, her entire life. In the very center of the glowing moon petal circle, where the light was most intense, a single magnificent flower stood taller than the rest. Its petals were not just edged with blue, but completely suffused with the color, a deep, celestial indigo that pulsed with a steady, rhythmic beat. And from this central flower, the heart of the song seemed to emanate, a resonant hum that vibrated through the very air. But it wasn't just a flower. As Lyra stepped closer, mesmerized, she saw that the central blossom was not rooted in the earth like the others. It floated, perhaps a foot above the ground, its stem dissolving into shimmering blue light just before it touched the mossy earth. And beneath it, where its roots should have been, was not soil, but a swirling vortex of deep, sapphire blue light, like a miniature, calm storm of stardust. It was a portal, a shimmering, humming gateway, hidden within the heart of the song of the moon petals. A gate to somewhere else beyond the whispering woods, beyond the sleeping peaks, perhaps even beyond the stars. Lyra stood at the edge of the circle of singing flowers, the blue light washing over her, the melody enveloping her. Her small wooden sparrow felt warm in her hand. The portal pulsed, beckoning. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with the thrill of discovery, the promise of an unknown adventure. She felt a pull, an irresistible urge to step into that swirling sapphire light, to follow the song of the moon petals wherever it might lead. Lyra took a breath, the scent of earth and damp leaves from her own world still clinging faintly to her, a last anchor before she let go. The wooden sparrow, warm and reassuring, pressed against her palm. With a decisive step, she pushed through the shimmering sapphire membrane. The world dissolved around her. It wasn't a dizzying spin or a sudden lurch, but a gentle unraveling of reality. Colors bled into each other, sounds became pure vibration, and for a timeless moment, Lyra felt as if she were made of light herself, a single, bright note in an infinite symphony. The sapphire pulsed around her, not as a tunnel, but as a vast living chamber of pure energy. She floated, weightless, the warmth of the sparrow her only tangible tether. She could hear the song of the moon petals now, not just as a melody, but as a hum that resonated deep within her bones, a language of light and longing. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the sensation shifted. The sapphire light softened, diffusing into 1,000 hues of violet and rose. She felt a gentle nudge, a soft landing, not on solid ground, but on something yielding and impossibly soft. Lyra opened her eyes. She was no longer in her familiar glade. Above her, instead of sky, was a vast arching canopy of interwoven starlight. It pulsed with a gentle, rhythmic glow, like a cosmic heart. Below, she stood on a carpet of moss that shimmered with internal lights, each tiny frond a miniature lantern. Great, luminous trees, their trunks like polished mother-of-pearl, spiraled upwards, their branches weeping cascades of glowing, bell-shaped flowers that chimed with the softest, most ethereal music whenever a breeze stirred them. Rivers of liquid starlight, cool and silent, wound their way through the landscape, reflecting the celestial canopy above. Tiny motes of pure light, no bigger than fireflies, danced in the air, leaving trails of faint, shimmering dust. This was the Lumiflora expanse, a realm woven from starlight and song. The air itself felt alive, thick with a sweet floral fragrance that was both familiar and utterly alien. It hummed with the quiet thrum of 1,000 gentle melodies, each plant, each flowing river, each dancing light mote, contributing a unique note to a grand, harmonious chorus. The song of the moon petals was everywhere here, not a distant call, but the very breath of this world. Lyra took a tentative step, her boots sinking slightly into the luminous moss. The wooden sparrow in her hand vibrated, a soft purring warmth, as if it recognized the symphony around them. Her heart, still thrumming with the wonder of the journey, swelled with an overwhelming sense of peace and discovery. She looked around, her eyes wide with awe. In the distance, she could see mountains that seemed to be carved from amethyst and diamond, their peaks touching the starlight canopy. Closer, colossal flowers, larger than any she had ever seen, bloomed with petals that unfurled like delicate wings, each one imbued with its own gentle luminescence. Some were sapphire, others emerald, ruby, or shimmering gold, all pulsing softly, adding their light to the gentle radiance of the expanse. As she marveled, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Near a river of starlight, where delicate glowing lilies floated, tiny beings no bigger than her thumb zipped and darted. They were made of concentrated light, their forms shifting like miniature nebulae, trailing faint, iridescent dust. They had delicate, butterfly-like wings that beat with an almost invisible speed, and their movements were accompanied by faint, bell-like chimes. "Hello?" Lyra whispered, her voice feeling too loud in the soft musical quiet. The tiny beings froze, their light dimming slightly, like shy fireflies. They hovered for a moment, then, with a unified silent dart, they vanished amongst the glowing lily pads. Lyra smiled. "Don't be afraid," she murmured, holding out her hand, the wooden sparrow resting on her palm. "I'm Lyra. I followed the song." She waited, still and patient. After a moment, one brave little light being, barely a speck of shifting colors, peeked out from behind a lily pad. It hovered, its tiny form pulsing with curiosity, its chimes a question. Then another, and another, until a dozen of them had emerged, forming a shimmering iridescent cloud around Lyra. They circled her slowly, their chimes growing bolder, brighter, like a chorus of tiny bells. One, bolder than the rest, drifted closer, its form resolving into something like a miniature, winged humanoid made entirely of shifting light. It reached out a tiny glowing hand and gently touched Lyra's wooden sparrow. A wave of pure, joyful curiosity washed over Lyra's mind, a feeling rather than a word, but clear as day. It was as if the little creature was asking, "What is this warm singing thing you carry?" "When in there, and there." Lyra smiled. "This is my sparrow," she explained softly, knowing they probably wouldn't understand her words, but hoping her intention would carry. "It helps me listen to the song." As if in response, the sparrow pulsed, a gentle thrum of warmth and blue light spreading from it. The light being, which Lyra now mentally dubbed a lumen sprite, recoiled slightly, then pulsed with renewed fascination. Its chimes became a rapid, joyful cascade, and suddenly, the entire swarm of lumen sprites began to dance around Lyra, their movements creating intricate patterns of light in the air, like living constellations. They were showing her something. Their collective light began to coalesce, forming a shimmering arrow that pointed deeper into the expanse, towards a particularly grand, towering bloom in the distance. This flower was immense, its petals spiraling upwards like a colossal, translucent conch shell, glowing with an inner light that was deeper, more profound than anything else around. It pulsed with the very essence of the song of the moon petals, a slow, majestic melody that resonated through Lyra's entire being. The lumen sprites led the way, darting and weaving, their chimes guiding her. Lyra followed, her spirit light, and her steps eager. The ground beneath her feet was no longer just moss, but a tapestry of gently glowing fungi and tiny, bioluminescent pebbles that seemed to sing as she walked over them. She passed beneath arches of interwoven star vines, their tendrils dripping with luminous dew. The air grew thicker, with the scent of the grand bloom, a perfume of pure moonlight and cosmic dust. As they drew closer, Lyra noticed something amiss. The immense moon petal bloom, though still magnificent, seemed less vibrant than it should be. Its inner glow flickered subtly, and its majestic song, while beautiful, carried an undertone of. The surrounding lumen sprites, though still joyful in their guiding, seemed to cast anxious glances at the great flower, their chimes occasionally taking on a worried, questioning tone. Finally, they arrived at the base of the colossal bloom. Its roots, thick as ancient trees, delved into a central pool of shimmering sapphire-blue starlight. From this pool, a being of pure, flowing luminescence rose. It was immense, taller than any tree Lyra had ever seen, its form nebulous yet distinct, like a living waterfall of starlight. Its eyes were twin pools of deep cosmic indigo, filled with ancient wisdom and gentle sadness. Its voice, when it spoke, was not a sound but a resonance that echoed in Lyra's heart, deep and comforting, like the hum of the universe itself. "Welcome, child of the waking world," the luminous being resonated. "You have followed the song's faintest whisper, across realms and beyond the veil of stars. I am Auralis, the bloom guardian of the Lumiflora expanse, and I have awaited your coming." Lyra, awestruck, could only manage a small curtsy. "Hello, Auralis. The lumen sprites led me here. Is something wrong with the moon petal bloom?" Auralis's form pulsed, a ripple of soft, sorrowful light passing through it. "Indeed, little Lyra, the great moon petal bloom, the heart and voice of our realm, falters. Its song, which weaves the very fabric of starlight and life in the expanse, dims, and with it, our world begins to wane." "What happened?" Lyra asked, her brow furrowed with concern. The thought of this beautiful, magical world fading filled her with a pang of sadness. "A star thread, Lyra," Auralis resonated, its voice growing softer, like a dying echo. "The celestial tapestry that binds our realm to the greater cosmos has frayed. A vital thread, the thread of harmony which carries the pure resonance of the moon petals to the distant stars and back, has come undone. Without its connection, the bloom cannot draw its full power, nor can its song reach its full glory." Auralis gestured with a luminous hand towards the upper reaches of the colossal bloom. Lyra looked up, following the direction. High above, where the topmost petals unfurled towards the starlight canopy, she could see a faint, shimmering line, like a strand of gossamer, that seemed to connect the bloom to the overarching star tapestry. But at one point, it was indeed frayed, a gap in its iridescent shimmer, a dissonance in the otherwise perfect harmony. "To mend it," Auralis continued, "requires a touch of pure intention, a heart attuned to the song and the fabled needle of starlight. Only with these can the thread of harmony be rewoven." "The needle of starlight?" Lyra echoed, her gaze returning to the bloom guardian. "It is an artifact of ancient celestial craft, forged from a fallen star tear, imbued with the power to mend the very fabric of existence," Auralis explained. "It lies hidden within the echoing crystal caves, a place of whispered wonders and shimmering reflections, located high within the amethyst peaks." Auralis pulsed, and a shimmering image appeared in the air, a miniature, glowing map, showing a winding path up the majestic crystal mountains Lyra had glimpsed earlier. "The echoing crystal caves are not dangerous, Lyra," Auralis reassured her, sensing her slight apprehension. "But they are a labyrinth of light and sound, where illusions can sometimes lead the unwary astray. Only a heart guided by the true song can navigate their depths." Lyra looked down at the wooden sparrow in her hand. It pulsed gently, a warm, reassuring thrum. She remembered how it had guided her to the portal, how it seemed to respond to the song. "I can do it," Lyra said, her voice small but firm. "I'll find the needle of starlight, and help mend the thread of harmony. Auralis pulsed with what felt like deep gratitude. Your courage shines, little one. The lumen sprites will guide you as far as they can, but the caves themselves are a solitary journey for the one destined to mend the thread. The lumen sprites, who had been listening intently, chimed their agreement, their light brightening. A small group of them, their forms coalescing into a more vibrant blue, darted forward, circling Lyra's head as if eager to lead the way. "You must seek the heart echo crystal within the caves," Auralis instructed. "It is there that the needle of starlight rests, protected by the cave's own melodic puzzles. The crystal will resonate with the song when you are near. Listen with your heart, Lyra." With a nod, Lyra turned, following the eager lumen sprites. They zipped ahead, forming a shimmering blue path through the glowing moss, leading her away from the majestic moon-petal bloom, and towards the distant crystalline mountains. The journey to the amethyst peaks was a breathtaking traverse through the lumiflora expanse. Lyra walked past fields of swaying, luminous grass that whispered secrets in the breeze. She crossed bridges woven from woven starlight, spanning rivers of liquid silver that flowed with the grace of slow-motion dreams. The lumen sprites were constant companions, their chimes a gentle, encouraging symphony. They showed her hidden pathways, pointed out fruits that tasted of pure light and dew, and even played games of hide-and-seek amongst the glowing flora, their laughter a cascade of tiny bells. As they approached the foothills of the amethyst peaks, the landscape began to change. The soft, luminous moss gave way to ground studded with glittering crystals that hummed with a low, resonant frequency. The trees here were fewer, their branches more gnarled, and instead of glowing bellflowers they bore clusters of shimmering crystalline leaves that tinkled like wind chimes. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of ozone and ancient stone. The lumen sprites, their light dimming slightly in the shadow of the colossal peaks, paused at the entrance to a vast, shimmering cavern. The entrance was an archway of pure amethyst, studded with countless smaller crystals that glittered like embedded stars. From within, Lyra could hear faint, echoing melodies, like 1,000 whispers playing hide-and-seek. "This is as far as we may go, Lyra." A collective chime resonated in her mind from the lumen sprites. "The caves absorb our light, but the song will guide you. Listen for the heart echo." Lyra knelt, gently stroking the luminous forms of the lumen sprites. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. "You've been wonderful guides." The sprites pulsed with affection. Then, with a final chorus of chimes, they retreated, their tiny lights fading into the shimmering expanse outside the cave. Taking a deep breath, Lyra stepped into the echoing crystal caves. The air inside was cool and still, carrying the distinct tang of mineral and ancient magic. The walls of the cavern shimmered with internal light, each crystal a tiny prism catching and refracting the ambient glow. The ground beneath her feet was smooth, polished crystal, reflecting her own image back at her. The echoing melodies Auralis had spoken of were clearer now. They weren't jarring, but soft and haunting, like the distant memory of a lullaby. Each echo seemed to shift, to change its tune, creating a sense of constant ethereal music that filled the vast space. Lyra walked deeper, the light from outside slowly fading behind her, replaced by the internal luminescence of the caves. Passageways branched off in every direction, some wide and grand, others narrow and winding. Reflections danced everywhere, making it difficult to discern reality from illusion. A pathway might seem to lead straight ahead, only to dissolve into a shimmering wall of light just as she approached, revealing another path to her left or right. "Listen with your heart," Auralis's words echoed in her mind. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, focusing on the warmth of her wooden sparrow, on the faint constant thrum of the song of the moon petals within it. She opened her eyes, and instead of looking with her sight, she tried to feel the direction. She noticed subtle differences. Some paths felt cold and silent, despite the echoing melodies. Others seemed to draw her in, a faint warmth emanating from them. She chose one that felt subtly warmer, where the echoes seemed to coalesce into a more harmonious, if still distant, tune. As she navigated the labyrinth, Lyra encountered various crystalline formations. Some resembled giant, frozen waterfalls of light. Others were like forests of slender, glowing pillars, each one resonating with a different pitch when she gently touched it. She discovered small, hidden grottos where the crystals formed intricate patterns that mimicked constellations, pulsing with miniature starlight. The deeper she went, the more the cave's melodies intensified. They weren't just echoes anymore, but distinct, layered harmonies. Sometimes a crystal would hum softly as she passed, adding its note to the symphony. Lyra realized the cave itself was a grand, living instrument. She reached a point where 3 paths converged, each one seemingly identical, each shimmering with reflections. This was the moment where illusions could truly mislead. Lyra held her sparrow close, focusing intently. The sparrow vibrated, a soft, insistent pulse, and a faint, almost imperceptible blue glow emanated from it, pointing towards the central path. She followed. The path narrowed, leading into a chamber where the air thrummed with a beautiful, resonant chord. In the center of the chamber, nestled amongst a cluster of particularly vibrant sapphire crystals, stood a single magnificent crystal, taller than Lyra herself. It pulsed with a soft internal light, and from its heart emanated a pure, unwavering melody, the very heart echo Auralis had spoken of. It was a perfect, resonant tone, clearer and more focused than any other sound in the caves, the pure essence of the moon petal song. Lyra approached the heart echo crystal, her heart pounding with excitement. As she drew near, the crystal's light intensified, and the wooden sparrow in her hand practically hummed with recognition. At the base of the crystal, nestled in a bed of shimmering crystalline moss, lay a slender object. It was the needle of starlight. It was not a sewing needle, but a delicate crystalline rod, about the length of her forearm, tapering to an impossibly fine point that shimmered with concentrated starlight. It seemed to be made of pure, solidified moonlight, catching and refracting the light of the heart echo crystal into 1,000 tiny rainbows. It hummed faintly with its own internal energy, a quiet, powerful song of mending and weaving. Lyra reached out, her fingers trembling slightly, and gently picked up the needle of starlight. It was surprisingly light, almost weightless and cool to the touch. As her fingers closed around it, a jolt of pure, clean energy coursed through her, connecting her to the needle, to the heart echo crystal, and to the faint, distant thrum of the moon petal bloom. She felt a surge of confidence, a knowing that she held the key to restoring the Lumiflora expanse. Now, she had to return. The journey back through the echoing crystal caves was easier, the needle of starlight acting as a silent compass, resonating with the correct path, cutting through the illusions with its pure light. The heart echo crystal's song, now imprinted on her mind and heart, guided her steps. Soon she emerged from the caves, blinking in the softer, luminous light of the Lumiflora expanse. The lumen sprites who had been patiently waiting near the entrance buzzed forward with joyful chimes, their lights flickering with excitement as they saw the needle of starlight in her hand. They led her back, swiftly and silently, through the glowing fields and starlight rivers, back to the majestic moon petal bloom. Auralis, the bloom guardian, was waiting, its luminous form pulsing with renewed hope. "You have succeeded, brave Lyra." Auralis resonated, its voice stronger now, filled with profound relief. "The needle of starlight is in your hand. Now, the reweaving must begin." Auralis guided Lyra towards the central pool of sapphire starlight, at the base of the moon petal bloom. The thread of harmony must be rejoined at its source, and then carried upwards to meet the distant stars. Lyra looked at the immense bloom, then at the needle of starlight. The task seemed daunting, but the confidence she'd felt holding the needle, the clear purpose in Auralis's voice, gave her strength. "First," Auralis instructed, "you must find the severed end of the thread of harmony. Here at the base of the bloom, the needle will guide you." Lyra knelt beside the shimmering pool. She held the needle of starlight over the surface, and immediately, it began to hum more intensely, its fine point glowing with a brilliant, sapphire light. It dipped towards a specific spot in the pool, where a faint, shimmering strand of light, almost invisible to the naked eye, pulsed weakly. This was the frayed end of the thread of harmony. With gentle precision, Lyra used the needle's tip to carefully lift the shimmering strand from the starlight pool. It felt like holding a single beam of moonlight. "Now, Lyra," Auralis resonated, "you must begin to reweave. With the needle, follow the path of the original thread, allowing the song to flow through you, through the needle, and into the cosmic tapestry." Lyra took a deep breath. She held the needle of starlight, its point glowing with purpose, and with her free hand, she held the fragile thread of harmony. She looked up at the immense moon petal bloom, at the distant fray in the celestial tapestry high above. This was it. The moment of mending. Done. She began to move, slowly at first, then with a steady, determined rhythm. The needle, guided by the song that now resonated so strongly within Lyra, began to draw out the essence of the moon petal bloom's song, weaving it into the detached thread of harmony. As she worked, the thread itself seemed to thicken, to glow with a richer, deeper blue. She had to ascend the bloom. With the lumen sprites fluttering around her, their tiny forms glowing with encouragement, Lyra began to climb the colossal petals. The petals were surprisingly easy to navigate, their surfaces textured like soft luminescent silk, providing purchase for her small hands and feet. As she climbed, she continued to weave, letting the needle's magic and the song's purpose flow through her. With every upward movement, the thread of harmony grew stronger, its shimmering blue light vibrant and clear. The moon petal bloom itself seemed to respond, its inner glow brightening, its majestic song gaining strength and clarity. The surrounding lumiflora expanse pulsed in harmony, the starlight rivers flowing with renewed vigor, the glowing trees chiming with a sweeter melody. Finally, after what felt like an age of focused, rhythmic weaving, Lyra reached the point high on the moon petal bloom where the thread of harmony had frayed, where the gap in the celestial tapestry yawned. She held the now vibrant, glowing thread, its end humming with the full power of the bloom's song. With the needle of starlight, Lyra carefully brought the newly woven thread to the ancient, still connected part of the star thread. There was no seam, no knot, just a seamless, magical melding. As the needle touched the two ends together, a brilliant flash of sapphire light erupted, not blinding, but profoundly beautiful. The entire celestial canopy above pulsed, and a wave of pure harmonious energy rippled through the lumiflora expanse. The moon petal bloom let out a triumphant, glorious burst of song, a melody so rich and powerful that it vibrated through every fiber of Lyra's being. Its petals unfurled further, revealing an even deeper, more luminous core. The fray in the star thread was gone, replaced by a line of shimmering, iridescent blue that pulsed with vibrant life, connecting the bloom to the distant cosmos once more. The lumen sprites burst into a joyous, chaotic dance, their chimes a symphony of celebration. Auralis, far below, pulsed with such intense light that Lyra could feel its boundless gratitude and joy, even from her lofty perch. Lyra, still high on the moon petal bloom, felt a profound sense of accomplishment and peace. The needle of starlight in her hand grew warm, then slowly, gracefully, dissolved into a shower of pure stardust, its purpose fulfilled. The wooden sparrow, however, pulsed with a renewed, vibrant warmth, its blue light now a constant, steady glow. It had grown stronger, more attuned. The song of the moon petals, now fully restored, resonated through the entire lumiflora expanse. But Lyra noticed something new within its depths. A subtle, underlying current, a new layer to the melody, had emerged. It wasn't a call to mend, but a gentle, inquisitive hum, pointing not upwards to the stars, but outwards, towards a new horizon. It spoke of a place where light and shadow danced in harmony, where whispers carried ancient secrets, and where the song itself took on a different form. Lyra descended the moon petal bloom, the air filled with the vibrant, joyous song of the restored realm. Auralis met her at the base, its luminous form shimmering with profound admiration. "You have saved our world, Lyra," the bloom guardian resonated, its voice now full and strong, echoing with the renewed power of the expanse. "The thread of harmony is whole once more, and the moon petal bloom sings its full glory." The lumen sprites swirled around Lyra, brushing against her with tiny, affectionate pulses of light. "I'm glad I could help," Lyra said, a soft smile on her face. She felt lighter, happier, knowing she had made a difference. Auralis pulsed, and a new shimmering image appeared in the air, a different one than before. This one showed a swirling vortex of deep, twilight colors, not blue, but rich purples and soft grays, hinting at a place where the edges of day and night met. And from this image, Lyra could feel the new current in the song, the gentle, beckoning hum. "The song of the moon petals, Lyra," Auralis explained, "is a living melody. It adapts, it grows, it seeks balance. Having restored harmony here, it now calls you to a new place, where another part of its vast symphony awaits discovery." Lyra looked at the image, then down at her wooden sparrow, which pulsed in gentle agreement with the new call. The lumiflora expanse was beautiful, and she felt a pang of longing to stay, But the thrill of discovery, the promise of the unknown, stirred within her once more. The song was not finished with her yet. Where does it lead this time? Lyra asked, her eyes bright with a renewed sense of adventure. Aralis resonated, its vast form shimmering like a distant galaxy. To the whispering vales of twilight, Lyra, a realm where shadows are not merely the absence of light, but living entities, where silence holds profound wisdom, and where the song takes on the form of echoes and dreams. There, the lullaby of the star shadows needs a listener, a heart brave enough to understand its quiet beauty, and perhaps to mend another imbalance. The image of the twilight vales pulsed, beckoning. Lyra felt the familiar pull, the irresistible urge to step into that swirling shadowy light, to follow the new current of the song of the moon petals wherever it might lead, knowing that her journey was far from over. Her sparrow felt warm in her hand, a steady beacon for the next great adventure. The twilight vales shimmered, a living tapestry of twilight hues and shifting shadows. Lyra took a deep breath, the scent of petrichor and distant starlight filling her lungs, a scent that shouldn't exist but did. Her sparrow, its feathers now glowing with a soft inner luminescence, fluttered from her hand to her shoulder, a tiny, vibrant beacon against the swirling darkness. With a step that felt more like a surrender to a gentle current, Lyra passed through the vales. The world on the other side was not a sudden burst of light, nor a plunge into absolute darkness. It was a realm of perpetual, muted twilight, a place where colors were softened to pastels and grays, and shadows stretched long and indistinct, never quite resolving into true night. This was the domain of the dimming stars, a place where the lullaby of the star shadows had fallen silent, or perhaps was simply unheard. Above, a vast pale dome of sky was dotted with stars, but they were distant, like forgotten memories, their light thin and hesitant. There was no deep, velvet blackness for them to truly shine against, only a pervasive, hazy indigo. The air itself felt heavy with quiet sorrow, a hum of unspoken longing. Lyra felt it resonate within her, a gentle ache behind her ribs, a yearning for something bright and clear. The landscape unfurled before her in soft undulations. Hills draped in mist, trees with leaves the color of faded silver, their branches reaching like skeletal fingers towards the dim sky. Everything was still, save for a faint, almost imperceptible whine whisper that seemed to drift on the breeze, not words but a sensation of sighing, of waiting. "Is this the imbalance?" Lyra murmured, her voice a soft ripple in the profound quiet. Her sparrow, Kale, nudged her ear with his head. "The absence of true rest, Lyra. The stars are meant to be the lullaby for a sleeping world, and the shadows their embrace. Here, neither fully exists." His voice, a chime within her mind, carried a new note of solemnity. The lullaby of the star shadows isn't just about the stars, but the quiet, deep darkness that allows them to be seen, and the peace that allows dreams to blossom. As they journeyed deeper, Lyra began to understand. She saw creatures, shadowy and ephemeral, flitting between the silver trees. They weren't frightening but seemed lost, their movements lacking purpose, their eyes wide and unfocused. Some drifted like smoke, others huddled together, seemingly drawing no comfort from each other. They were the dream spirits, Kale explained, unable to find true rest or form their dreams in this perpetual twilight. Without the deep, reassuring darkness, the lullaby could not truly sing, and the dreams, which were the lullaby's children, could not bloom. Lyra reached out a hand to a passing wisp of shimmering gray. It paused, a faint glow flickering within its translucent form, like a firefly trying to ignite in a fog. It was a fragment of a dream, beautiful but incomplete, unable to fully manifest. She felt a pang of empathy. These were not nightmares but undreams, suspended in a state of perpetual limbo. Who would do this? Lyra wondered, her heart aching for the lost dreams. Why would anyone dim the stars and steal the darkness? Kale flew ahead, a small, vibrant dart of light in the gloom. It is not always an act of malice, Lyra, but often one of misunderstanding or a desperate attempt to mend a perceived wrong. Follow me. We seek the heart of shadow where the imbalance began to weave. Their path led them deeper into the dimming stars, through valleys where the air grew heavy and sweet, with the scent of night-blooming jasmine that never fully bloomed, and across plains where phantom rivers of starlight flowed sluggishly, their luminescence trapped beneath a film of gray mist. Lyra noticed strange structures rising from the landscape, like forgotten monuments, spires of polished dark crystal that seemed to absorb what little light there was, rather than reflect it. As they approached one such spire, Lyra felt a peculiar sensation, like a whisper against her very soul. It was a faint, discordant hum, a vibration that felt like a note held too long, or a chord played just slightly out of tune. It was the distorted echo of the lullaby, she realized, muffled and incomplete. At the base of the spire, Lyra saw a figure. It was tall and slender, draped in robes the color of deep twilight, almost indistinguishable from the shadows it stood within. Its hands, long and elegant, moved with a mesmerizing grace, pulling at strands of shimmering energy that seemed to emanate from the crystal spire itself, weaving them into intricate, shadowy patterns. Around the figure, the fragments of undreams danced, drawn to the strange energy, but never truly settling. This, Lyra knew instinctively, was the Gloomweaver, the source of the imbalance. Not a monstrous villain, but a weaver, a creator, whose art had inadvertently stifled the natural world. "Who are you?" Lyra asked, her voice soft but clear, cutting through the pervasive quiet. The figure paused, its weaving hands stilling. It turned slowly, and Lyra saw its face. It was not a face of malice, but of profound, ancient weariness. Its eyes, the color of twilight pools, held an immense sadness, and lines of intricate, luminous shadow script adorned its high cheekbones. "I am the Gloomweaver," the figure replied, its voice a low, melodic resonance, like wind chimes in a deep cave. "And I tend to the last vestiges of true night. I protect the dimming stars." Lyra frowned, confused. "But, by protecting them, you are dimming them further. The stars need the deep night to truly shine. The dreams need the true darkness to bloom." The Gloomweaver sighed, a sound like rustling dry leaves. "You speak of a truth I once knew, but the darkness grew too vast, too hungry. It threatened to swallow all light, all hope. I saw the stars fading, one by one, devoured by an endless cold void. So I gathered the light, drew it close, wove the shadows thick around it, believing I was preserving it, holding back the devouring night." It gestured to the spire. "This is my sanctuary, my loom. Here, I weave the shadows to hold the starlight captive, to protect it from the encroaching, swallowing void." Lyra looked at the dim stars, the undreams, the pervasive sorrow. "But you've created a different kind of void," she said gently. "A void of stillness, where nothing truly sleeps and nothing truly wakes. The lullaby of the star shadows isn't just about stars, it's about the rhythm of the universe, the balance between light and dark, the promise of rebirth of dreams." Kale fluttered from Lyra's shoulder to hover between her and the Gloomweaver. "The lullaby is the song of release, not capture," he chimed. "It is the gentle breathing of the cosmos, Lyra. When the dark holds the light too tightly, it suffocates it. When the light flees the dark, it scatters and loses its brilliance." The Gloomweaver looked at Kale, its ancient eyes widening slightly. "A star sparrow," it whispered, a glimmer of recognition in its sad gaze. "It has been eons since one of your kind graced these shadows. You speak of balance, but I saw only loss, a profound aching emptiness that threatened to consume all." Lyra felt a surge of understanding. The Gloomweaver wasn't malevolent. It was a being that had experienced a deep trauma, a cosmic grief that had driven it to this misguided act of preservation. It believed it was saving the stars, when in reality, it was silencing their song. "The void you feared," Lyra began, "was perhaps not an enemy, but a necessary part of the lullaby itself. The deep darkness is not empty, it is full of potential. It is the canvas upon which the stars paint their stories, the cradle in which dreams are born and nurtured." She stepped closer, her hand reaching out, not to touch, but to offer. "You've woven a beautiful, intricate cage, Gloomweaver. But the stars are meant to dance freely, to flicker and fade and be reborn, in the rhythm of the true night." The Gloomweaver seemed to absorb her words, its gaze distant, as if recalling a forgotten memory. "But how do I let go?" it whispered, its voice laced with fear. "If I release the shadows, if I unweave this protection, what if the true void returns? What if the stars vanish forever, swallowed by the darkness once more? Its long, slender fingers trembled, pulling at the woven shadows around the spire, almost instinctively tightening their grip. You don't just release them, Lyra explained, a new idea forming in her mind, guided by the quiet wisdom within her, the song of the moon petals that had now settled in her heart. You help them sing. The lullaby isn't just about darkness or light. It's about the connection between them. The gentle flow. The trust. She thought of the moon petals, of how they bloomed in the softest light, and reflected the moon's serene glow. The stars were similar, not needing to fight the darkness, but to partner with it. Show me your weaving, Lyra requested gently. Show me how you hold the light. Perhaps together, we can teach it to sing again, to weave a different kind of shadow, one that cradles rather than captures. Hesitantly, the gloom weaver gestured to the spire. It was not merely a crystal, Lyra now saw, but a vast living loom, intricately carved with symbols of celestial bodies and slumbering creatures. The shadowy threads it wove were not just dark but infused with faint captured starlight, like embers trapped in smoke. They pulsed with a slow, heavy beat, a distorted echo of the lullaby's true rhythm. I draw the last light of the fading stars into these threads, the gloom weaver explained, its voice gaining a touch of its ancient craft's pride. And I weave them into a protective shroud, believing I am preserving them from the encroaching darkness that once threatened to consume all. Lyra stepped closer to the loom, her small hand reaching out. She felt the cool, smooth surface of the crystal, and the faint thrumming of the trapped starlight. This was a place of immense power, misused but not corrupted. The true lullaby of the star shadows, Lyra began, her voice gaining strength, is a song of trust. The stars trust the darkness to hold them, to make their light visible. The darkness trusts the stars to return, to illuminate its depths. It is a cycle of surrender and renewal. She closed her eyes, and the song of the moon petals within her began to resonate, not as a sound, but as a feeling of deep, abiding peace, of harmony between opposing forces. She imagined the moon, serenely watching over the night, its light illuminating without dominating, creating shadows that were not voids, but spaces of gentle mystery. You have held the stars, Lyra continued, opening her eyes and looking at the gloom weaver. But now, you must learn to unrelease them, not into a void but into the loving embrace of the true night. The darkness is not an enemy to be fought, but a partner to be danced with. Kale, sensing the shift, began to sing. It was a soft, wordless melody, a pure, ethereal sound that seemed to shimmer with starlight. It was the forgotten refrain of the lullaby of the star shadows, a melody of quiet beauty, of deep peace. As Kale sang, Lyra placed her hands gently on the crystal loom. She didn't try to unweave the shadows, but rather, she focused on the trapped starlight within the threads. She imagined coaxing it, not forcing it, to remember its true purpose, its true song. Imagine the stars, Lyra said to the gloom weaver, her voice a calm whisper, not as fragile sparks to be guarded, but as strong, brave lights that engage the darkness to truly shine. Imagine the shadows, not as a hungry void, but as a deep, comforting blanket that makes the stars even more brilliant, inviting dreams to unfold beneath their gaze. The gloom weaver watched Lyra, its ancient eyes fixed on her, on the sparrow, on the gentle current of the song of the moon petals that now flowed through her. For the first time in eons, a flicker of understanding, not fear, crossed its face. A comforting blanket, it repeated, its voice softer now, tinged with a fragile hope. Not a devouring maw. Slowly, hesitantly, the gloom weaver reached out its own hands, placing them over Lyra's on the crystal loom. Its touch was cool, like polished stone, but Lyra felt no chill, only a deep current of ancient sorrow and a nascent desire to understand. Together they stood, Lyra's warmth blending with the gloom weaver's coolness, Kale's song weaving a spell of peace around them. Lyra focused her intent, not on breaking the weave, but on transforming it. She imagined the threads of shadow becoming porous, breathable, allowing the starlight within to pulse and expand, to remember its own power. The crystal spire began to hum, a deeper, richer note than before, resonating with Kale's song. The captured starlight within the shadowy threads began to glow more brightly, no longer embers but tiny vibrant jewels. The lullaby of the star shadows, Lyra whispered, is the universe's gentle breath. Inhale, the deep, silent darkness full of potential. Exhale, the brilliant dancing stars. Full of wonder, it is the rhythm of rest and dreams. The gloom weaver closed its eyes, its breathing becoming slow and even. Lyra felt a great shift, a letting go. The ancient being was not simply releasing its grip on the starlight, it was releasing its grip on its fear, on its sorrow, on its long-held misunderstanding. It was learning to trust the darkness again, to trust the natural cycle. As the gloom weaver's intent shifted, so too did the weaving. The dense, suffocating threads of shadow began to thin, to soften, to shimmer with a new ethereal quality. They didn't vanish, but transformed. They became the true star shadows, deep, velvety, but alive with a gentle, receptive energy. They were no longer a cage, but a boundless, welcoming expanse. And as the shadows transformed, the stars above began to respond. One by one, then in constellations, their distant, hesitant lights flared to life. Not harsh, blinding light, but a soft, shimmering brilliance that seemed to sigh with contentment. The sky above them deepened, shedding its hazy indigo for a profound, rich black, a canvas perfectly suited for the incandescent jewels now twinkling across its expanse. The faint, discordant hum that had pervaded the domain of the dimming stars vanished, replaced by a symphony of quiet beauty. It was not a loud, boisterous song, but a subtle, resonant frequency that permeated everything. It was the lullaby of the star shadows, reborn. A quiet, steady thrumming that spoke of peace, of balance, of the vast, comforting embrace of the universe. The dream spirits which had once drifted aimlessly, now began to swirl with purpose. Their forms grew more defined, their inner light brighter. Lyra watched in awe as wisps of shimmering energy coalesced, forming delicate, intricate patterns, dreams taking shape, floating upwards towards the newly radiant stars, like luminous balloons released into the night sky. The air, once heavy with sorrow, now hummed with the gentle magic of nascent dreams. The gloom weaver opened its eyes. They were no longer filled with weariness or sadness, but with a profound, awestruck wonder. It looked up at the sky, at the now blazing stars, at the deep, true night that stretched endlessly above. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched its ancient lips. "The lullaby," it whispered, its voice filled with reverence. "It truly sings again. The darkness. It is not empty. It is full of light, full of dreams, full of trust." Lyra felt a wave of profound satisfaction wash over her. The imbalance was mended. The lullaby of the star shadows had found its voice, not through force, but through understanding and empathy. Her heart, which had carried the song of the moon petals, now felt expanded, richer, filled with the echoes of both the moon's serene wisdom and the star's quiet strength. The gloom weaver turned to Lyra, its gaze soft and knowing. "You have reminded me of what I forgot, little listener. You have shown me that true protection lies not in holding but in allowing. The dance of light and shadow is eternal, and each needs the other to truly be." It bowed its head, a gesture of deep gratitude. "This loom, it shall no longer capture, but shall guide. I shall become the weaver of true shadows, ensuring the lullaby of the star shadows never falls silent again." Kale flew to Lyra's shoulder, nuzzling her cheek. "Well done, Lyra. The balance is restored, and a heart once lost in fear has found its way back to wisdom." Lyra felt the familiar gentle pull of the twilight veils, beckoning her back. Her journey here was complete. She had stepped into the swirling shadows, listened with a brave heart, and helped mend another imbalance. "Thank you, Gloomweaver," Lyra said, a genuine smile gracing her lips. "May the stars sing brightly for all time, and may your shadows be forever true." She gave one last look at the transformed realm, the vibrant, deep night, the dazzling tapestry of stars, the swirling, joyful dance of the now manifesting dream spirits. The silver trees shimmered under the starlight, their leaves no longer faded but gleaming with a new ethereal beauty. The scent of night-blooming jasmine, now fully open, perfumed the air with intoxicating sweetness. Turning, Lyra walked towards the shimmering edge of the realm, the twilight veils. Kale remained on her shoulder, his soft glow a comforting presence. As she stepped back through the swirling light, the transition was seamless, like slipping from a vivid dream into a gentle waking. She found herself standing in a familiar place, a quiet clearing bathed in the soft, steady glow of a full moon. The air was cool and still, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. The moon petals, which had guided her on her first journey, were now fully open, their luminous faces turned towards the moon, reflecting its light in a shimmering carpet of silver. Lyra looked up at the moon, a serene, knowing smile on its face. She knew, without a doubt, that the song of the moon petals was still singing within her, a constant melody of guidance and connection. And now, the lullaby of the star shadows had joined it, a quiet, reassuring hum that spoke of the universe's vast, gentle peace. Her journey had changed her. She was still Lyra, the girl who loved the quiet magic of the world, but she was also a listener, a mender of songs, a keeper of balance. She understood now that the greatest magic wasn't about power or control, but about empathy, understanding, and the courage to listen with an open heart to the subtle melodies that held the world together. Kale, her faithful sparrow, fluttered from her shoulder to land gently on her outstretched palm. His inner glow had softened to a gentle pulse, mirroring the quiet strength that now resided within Lyra. He was no longer just a companion, but a symbol of her journey, a tangible link to the magic she had experienced. "It's finished, isn't it?" Lyra whispered to Kale, not as a question but as a statement of profound contentment. Kale tilted his head, his tiny eyes sparkling with ancient wisdom. "For now, Lyra, the great song of the world is ever present, ever singing. There will always be melodies to discover, harmonies to appreciate, and perhaps imbalances to mend. But this chapter, this lullaby, it sings true once more." Lyra smiled, a deep, joyful smile. She felt tired, but it was a good tiredness, a peaceful exhaustion that came from a job well done, from a heart stretched and filled with new understanding. She knew that the magic wasn't just in the distant realms or grand quests. It was in the quiet moments too, in the way the moonlight fell on the leaves, in the gentle rustle of the wind, in the warmth of a small sparrow in her hand. She looked around the familiar clearing, seeing it with new eyes, eyes that had seen the weaving of shadows and the rebirth of stars. The world was full of quiet wonders waiting for a listener. And Lyra, the girl with the brave heart and the moon petal song, was ready to listen. She took one last look at the moon, then at the glowing moon petals, and finally, at the tiny, faithful sparrow. A profound sense of peace settled over her, warm and comforting. The night was deep and true, the stars were shining, and somewhere, far beyond the reach of her ears, the lullaby of the star shadows was singing its quiet, beautiful song, bringing rest and dreams to all who listened. Lyra hugged Kale gently to her chest, feeling the soft beat of his tiny heart against her own. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she felt truly, completely at peace. The journey had ended, but the song of her heart had only just begun. The whispers of the world would always find their way to her, and she would always be ready to listen, to understand, and to carry the magic within her, a beacon in the quiet, wondrous night. The moon shone, the stars twinkled, and Lyra, with her sparrow safe in her hand, drifted into a sleep filled with the clearest, brightest dreams imaginable, knowing that the balance of the world and of her own heart was gently restored.